Hello everyone and welcome to Sociology 201. Normally I would do this introduction in class, but since we are doing everything online this semester, I figured I would record one. This video is not really about what you need to do in this class. It's not really about the work you have to do. It's not really about how you're assessed. All of that stuff is in the course outline. It's listed as like a formal document and you can take a look at it. I would encourage you to do so. That's part of what you're supposed to be doing this week. What I'm going to do in this video is talk to you a little bit about me and how I see this class and what the point of it all is, the purpose for what's happening with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my view of, I guess, Canadian history and how this all fits together. So the first thing you should probably know is, oh my goodness, I'm Anastasia. You'll catch me on video chat if you drop into office hours, and if you need to make an appointment, you can do that too. But I'm Anastasia. I'm teaching this section of Sociology 201 this semester. It's actually one of my favorite classes to teach, and that usually surprises students, mostly because a lot of the time our experience with learning history is that we learn history as a series of names and dates, and we sort of memorize these names and dates, and they don't really mean anything. I can teach that class, but I don't. So instead of that, what we're doing this semester is we're going to do a course that's really about, essentially, why we should care about any of that. So you'll find a lot of the work throughout the semester is really aimed at that idea of how do we talk about this as being relevant today. So one of the things that I really believe about Canada's history is that it didn't go away. It's not over and done with. It's something that we're still dealing with today. We're still living with a lot of these things. They're still relevant. In fact, a large part of your work for the semester is to talk about how this stuff is still relevant. So that sort of piece is really, really important. And when we start thinking about history that way, one of the things that becomes apparent pretty quickly is that it's actually a lot more interesting than those series of names and dates. So when we focus on that kind of thing, when we focus on how is this relevant, one of the things that we're doing is we're shifting away from a model where you have to memorize all of those names and dates and that's what I care about, to a model where what I really care about is how you think about that, how you can talk about that as being important. The kind of thing that makes you sound really smart around your family dinner table, more so than the kind of thing that gets you perfect scores on exams. That's not to say that those sorts of facts aren't important. I just don't expect you to memorize them. So you'll figure this out when you sort of look at them, but I will say this explicitly now. You have quizzes in this class. I don't expect you to sort of do them without your notes in your book, mostly because there would be no way for me to enforce it anyway, and also because I don't think it's very helpful. So the quizzes are there to ensure that you've got the fact basis of what we're doing, but I don't expect you to memorize that. You need to have that accessible, and if that means that you look up every question, that's fine by me. That's not what I'm interested in. What I am interested in is sort of that thinking and that reasoning. And that means that almost everything in the class doesn't have a right answer. If I ask you what year a particular policy was passed, you do need to know the answer to that, but again, you can look it up. The rest of it, though, the more important stuff about is this a good thing or a bad thing, I don't actually care whether you give me the answer that I have in my head. What I care about is whether or not you can justify that, whether or not you can sort of connect that and give me a reason. Overall, the reason part is way more important to me than the sort of specific facts and that sort of thing. Because aside from anything else, aside from pub trivia night, the only time you would ever need to memorize that kind of fact is on an exam for a class like this, so why would we bother? I will sort of give you a very, very brief thought on a philosophy of teaching. And I know that there's a lot of stuff that is changing a whole lot right now for everyone's education. And I really firmly believe that students have a right to know why things are going the way that they are going. So I put a lot of thought into designing this class the way that it is. But I have learned through experience that most of the time students don't actually want to hear me talk about that. If you have a particular question about why we are doing something a particular way or why we're not doing it another way, please ask me. Stop in for office hours, ask the question, do whatever it is that you need to do. But from my perspective, it is my responsibility to be able to explain that to you. And if I can't, I'm not doing my job and we need to change something about the way the course is set up. So That said, the other sort of very brief thought that I will give you is that I intentionally designed this class so that not much of anything would really need to change should we have to go online entirely very, very quickly later in the semester. That means that other than meeting with your group members, which you can schedule whenever you need to, there's not really anything that has to be done at a particular time. There's deadlines, yes, but there's not sort of a class period between 9 and 11:30. If you need some help blocking out time in your schedule like that, and that's how you're going to work best, you can absolutely reach out and I can help you do that. But as far as the course goes, I'm not going to force that on people. That's the sort of rough introduction, I guess, to the course itself. Um, the other thing that I will sort of say, and this is in my introductory post, but I will sort of mention it here as well, I'm better prepared than most to talk about the experience of Francophone Canadians and sort of the politics and the tensions that exist around that. So there's some stuff in your textbook, yes, but I know a little bit more than is in your textbook about that sort of stuff. So especially when we get to those units, make sure that you are paying attention to the videos because we're just going to be talking about stuff that isn't anywhere else. Have yourselves an awesome week, and the next videos will be about discussion board posts and your Heritage Minute assignment, which are sort of the two major written assignments in this class that you're going to need to pay attention to for the first little while.